I know that this isn't what you're used to. Oratory speeches being given from the ground or watched through a screen. When you imagine an oratory, I'm going to guess that usually the speaker is standing, there are no visuals behind them, and we're actually in the same room together. This is all legal, according to MIFA, by the way, but we don't seem to paint this picture when we imagine an oratory. This poses a conflict between our perception and reality. A lot of things about this speech seem weird. This conflict has arisen from the way that our brain creates patterns, black and white boxes for us to live in. It's easy to get locked into these routines, using them all the time so that we aren't constantly reinventing the wheel. But today, I want to argue that we should all take a seat. Let us first understand what black and white thinking is. Next, the important things that we have lost because of it. And lastly, how thinking outside of the box and in the gray is our solution. But first, what exactly is black and white thinking? Charles Duhigg, Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Power of Habit, studied the routines of people like Steve Jobs and Michael Phelps. He stated that our thinking patterns have 3 simple steps: cue, routine, and reward. To put this in context, let's take a look at the TV comedy show The Office. One of the main characters in the show, Jim, plays a prank on his deskmate, Dwight. After reading about Pavlov and his dogs, he attempts to train Dwight to expect a mint when his computer dings. So, every time his computer shuts down, cue, Dwight reaches his hand out, routine, for that mint, reward. This is a prime example of a thinking pattern, and we create them all the time subconsciously. And I don't want you to think that they're all bad. Our patterns define who we are. They make me, me, and you. And they often make the uncertain world more predictable, allowing us to feel comfortable. But in locking ourselves in, we lose the ability to think differently, and we encounter a problem when we rely on our thinking patterns too often. I know, it isn't always easy to see that our patterns are damaging, but now I'm waking up every morning for Zoom classes and reading emails from teachers who are doing everything they can to help us get by. I don't think any of us were prepared for the way that our lives would be uprooted, but it is this unpreparedness that only illuminates our problem. When we constantly use our routines, we are actually losing creativity and empathy in the long run. So let's take a look at a study done by professors at the University of Trento so that we can actually see how thinking differently is related to creativity. I want you to look at this image of the alphabet and imagine the next letter that comes. It's obvious that we're all imagining the letter E. When that happened, your brain looks something like this. That's your executive control network, or your EN, and it's what lights up when we use a routine, like thinking of the alphabet. Now, I want you to try and imagine a pretty picture. It can be a beachside or a meadow with flowers. When that happened, your brain looks something like this. That's your default mode network, or your DMN, and it's the fuel for daydreams. When we constantly use our EN, our DMN goes dark and our creativity goes down. And the stats are there to support that. Professor Kyung Kim of William & Mary Psychology Department reported that over the past 30 years, creativity scores have gone down. When we constantly use our routines because they make us feel safe, our creativity is lost. Instead of trying a new way of solving a math problem, we do what our teachers tell us in order to get that A. And we need to see that our loss of creativity is a serious problem because it's more than just what occurs in an art class. Empathy is directly related to it. In another study done at the University of California, Berkeley, they asked 500 students to take creativity and empathy tests, and the results were shocking. People who were highly creative were also highly empathetic. But to me, this makes sense. It takes a little bit of that creativity, a little bit of that gray, to see another person's perspective. When we encounter someone who is different from us, when we make mistakes and need empathy for ourselves, this is where it becomes crucial. Empathy has the ability to shape a civil society, respectful discourse, and an understanding of others. And so our loss is clear to see. People not abiding social distancing rules, protesting safety measures, all because their indifference has allowed them to feel untouchable. not understanding the perspective of those who have been affected. Our conflicts are becoming harder to solve, with no end in sight. So what is the solution to this alarming problem? Our society wants us to believe that working hard and perseverance are the answers to our conflicts, but they're not. Our solution is hidden amongst us, thinking in the gray. I mean, imagine if Isaac Newton hadn't looked at the apple falling and asked, why? Imagine if Steve Jobs hadn't looked at the face of technology and thought, let's think different. I'm sure that they both worked very hard to accomplish their goals, but what made them revolutionary was their ability to think in the gray. You see, when we think differently about a situation just once, that DMN region lights up again and empathy comes along with it. It seems difficult to do, but talking about the gray and recognizing its importance is the first step. In order to change a routine, one must recognize that it exists. The second step is using that gray to change the landscape of your life, and this can be simple. Try a new way of solving a math problem instead of forcing yourself to stay close to the rules. When you're starting a weight loss journey and you don't exactly reach your goal, change your perspective and acknowledge what you did accomplish. All of these small changes make the third and final step much easier, using that gray to change big things. With people who recognize that our routines are damaging, maybe we would have schools with curriculum with the intention of thinking differently, allowing students to be bold in their answers. Maybe our politicians would be willing to walk across the aisle and enact real change, instead of worrying about being safely reelected for office. Maybe all of us would stop being so afraid of the unknown and go bravely searching for our answers. Nothing about this speech seems routine anymore. The way it's being recorded, the way it's being heard. I wrote this speech long before COVID-19 overtook our lives, but with each passing day, thinking in the gray has become more important to me. I don't think any of us really understood how drastically our lives would change, how our routines would fall apart, but I'm noticing that we're relying on creativity and empathy more and more. I'm overwhelmed by the new ways that people have found to communicate, to reach out and extend love to one another. This time has shown us that thinking in the gray is necessary for us to move forward, that creativity and empathy are the building blocks for us during destruction. Use this gray world that has been thrust upon us and step into the unknown willingly. Thank you.